Start video. I need to get my pages in order here. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Manhattan. Our fellowship strives to be a vibrant, inclusive congregation, a haven for all, and a force for social justice. This month, we are exploring the theme of vulnerability, our concern for the vulnerable among us, and our hope to have a community where we can share our own vulnerabilities and know that we are all inherently worthy. We face our vulnerabilities as we are often unsure of our path forward toward acceptance and inclusion of all, and we know we can never be perfect in either our understanding or actions. And my name is Kathy Swenson. Judy Nicholson and I are the co-conveners for today, but Judy's lost her voice and she coughs when she talks, so I'll be doing a lot of the talking today. And we are here to welcome our speaker, Gina Repass, and her husband, Kyle. And hello. And Gina's going to be speaking about inclusion and belonging. Well, now it's time for our land acknowledgement. And Pat, I'm going to do a little of it, and then Pat's going to tell us about something. So come on up, Pat, and that's important. Now's the time of our service when we acknowledge the land upon which we gather, the ancestors and their descendants. We give our gratitude to members of the Kaw, Osage, and Pawnee nations who cared for this land before being coerced or forced to move. We recognize the 4 Native nations who call Kansas home now: the Prairie Band Potawatomi, the Kickapoo Tribe of Kansas, the Iowa Tribe of Kansas and Nebraska, and Sac and Fox Nation of Missouri in Kansas and Nebraska. And we recognize the ongoing injustice of settler colonialism and endeavor to make amends in our lives and in the life of our community. Judy has an announcement. Not Judy. No. Pat Embers.
Hello. Is that better? Okay. I asked Kathy if I could bring this up and read this today. It's not very long. I just want you to know that there is a plea to stop contemporary colonialization of Indigenous lands today and this week. And I'm just going to read this. I took this from an email that was sent me from a friend that noticed this, and I looked everything up, and this is what it said. A prayer on this Sunday, March 19th, is requested of all faiths nationwide by the Western Apache Tribe in Arizona, speaking nationally through the Coalition to Dismantle the Doctrine of Discovery. A film was shown last August here at UU about this doctrine issued by the Vatican 800 years ago that led to the worldwide colonization of many Indigenous lands. Today, the Apache request for prayers of all faiths, and this is going out nationwide, are an appeal to stop a foreign copper mining company from destroying the sacred Oak Flat land of the Apache, the land of their Apache ancestors buried there, and the Apache spiritual ceremonies continued there with their people today, as it has been for centuries. This sacred land is on the National Registry of Historic Places and has been protected from mining and other destructive practices for decades. Unfortunately, in 2014, it was sold through the help of Arizona Congressmen John McCain and Jeff Flake to the, is it Blake? No, it's Flake. Okay, I forget that. To the Resolution Copper Mining Company of Australia. This was part of a larger military bill that they were making that was real significant for Arizona, and they slipped this in. Nobody even knew it, hardly. On Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, March 21st, in 2 days, the Ninth Circuit Federal Court of Appeals in Pasadena, California, I don't know why it's there, but it's about the land in Arizona, will decide whether this mining company will be able to start tearing into the Apache Oak Flat land through its major copper mining takeover of their indigenous land. The Apache tribe asks the court to protect Oak Flat just as it would protect any church, mosque, or synagogue from government destruction. May we lend our prayers and thoughtful support to stop this government and private company takeover in court that has a panel of 11 judges on Tuesday, March 21st, that will affect the Apache and tribes around the country on continued loss of their sacred land to colonization. There's more information that you can Google on this if you just go to the Apache Oak Flat Court case of March 21st. Thank
you. Thank you, Pat, for bringing this information to us. Thank you. And now we will light the chalice. With the kindling of our flame, we recognize the fragility of life and our own vulnerability as we navigate challenges that always seem to come. May this light remind us of the strength we possess as individuals and collectively as a community to lean into and respond, finding our way forward together. And we have a song next that Renee will introduce to us.
Hi, so this is another Welsh hymn that was recommended to us by Frank Siegel, a lovely selection of Welsh hymnal pieces. And it's a really nice image of perseverance in times that are fraught and difficult and continuing to have hope. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it through once so you can hear it. And then we're going to have you guys sing verses 1 and 3. So we're skipping verse 2 for today. Feel free to hum along as I play through the first time. All right. Thank you. It does say on the second slide, it does say Amen. That's for the very last time if you want to do it. So.
It's a great song. Thank you, Nay. Now I invite the young and the young at heart and the young in body to come forward to participate in our Time for All Ages. You can just sit here on the front row right here. We're going to have it right up here. We're going to have it right up here on the screen. So if you sit right there with Sandy. And girls, come on up. Bring Pikachu and take a seat right up here. Yeah, you can bring Pikachu.
I also have a Pikachu stuffy, but it's at home.
It's at home. Yay. Here at UUFM, the offering we receive on Sunday morning goes to a special organization each month. Our March Helping Hands recipient is the Wonder Workshop Children's Museum, which offers interactive play and learning spaces for children and their families indoors and out. You can go online to donate at uufm.net, then clicking the donate link and choosing the particular fund to which you want to contribute. If you're here in person, you can put your offering in the basket at the back. And also, there's, I think another, is this the time, Judy, that I should announce that? Okay, I'll do that. Today is, well, maybe I can do that later at the sharing, okay. Okay, so you're invited at this time to share your joys and sorrows, and you can write it on the paper under the seat in front of you for me to read, or type something into the chat for Kathleen to read. And if you're here in the sanctuary, Judy will come and pick up your joys and sorrows. That was beautiful. We've come to the time where we share our joys and concerns, and let us call up a spirit of generosity, vulnerability, courage, and compassion as we listen to what has been shared. So here in the sanctuary, I think we have many things inside, but nothing shared out loud. And let's talk to Kathleen and see if we have some joys and sorrows from all of join us on Zoom. Thank you.
We do have some joys and sorrows to share. First, a joy from Tom Phillips that Tom and Stacy are very happy and grateful that they had a little vacation to Sedona, Arizona, where they enjoyed all the scenery, hiking, and cuisine. They have a sadness after it, though, that they returned and both tested positive for COVID. Stacy's a few days ago and Tom just this morning. So he hates to miss the potluck today, but they feel okay and hope to return to work after 5 days. And then they have concerns and sorrows. Babette McGoy and Buddy are sharing that Buddy has been diagnosed with colorectal cancer, and his surgery is tentatively scheduled for March 29th. And there is some concern right now about his heart and low hemoglobin levels, which have made him very weak and tired. But they do appreciate the well wishes that they've received, the good thoughts coming their way, and the prayers. And as they face these challenges, and as the caring team chair, I say, keep them coming to them. And then Jane Pelletier shared that our fellowship member, Glenna Burkle, passed away on Friday. Many people here may not know her because she hasn't attended for a while, but her last years were very difficult with Parkinson's and some other conditions. So as Jane said, she is now suffering no more. And then finally, just a reminder that next Saturday is a celebration of life for David Lambert, and it's at 2:00. And I could still use a little help with cleanup. If there's anybody willing to help us at the end of the service or end of the reception. Okay, and that's, I think, all we have today, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathleen. Very sorry to hear about Buddy's illness, and Babette helping him out as he's together. We will be thinking of you and praying for you. And we hope that recovery for Stacy and Tom happens quickly, and we will be sharing the times with Dave's family and Lena. Hope all are well. Please join me for a moment of silence as we honor the joys and sorrows that have been shared and those that remain quietly within our hearts. And now we're going to be singing the hymn, Break Not the Circle, and then we're going to hear from Gina Repass. this comes to the part where we get to meet Gina Repass and hear from her. As a woman of faith, Gina Repass leads with both hope and action. A Midwestern born and raised, she has spent her life bringing people together. Many times Gina has reflected on the meaning of service that her parents instilled in her. Her father was a Vietnam veteran and a police officer, and her mother was a civil rights activist turned Lutheran pastor. Gina was raised by strong, resourceful, caring, and community-oriented Black women, matriarchs who continued to inspire her to pass on their legacy to her own children as well as her community. The wisdom that her family instilled in her has inspired her to seek a path forward in politics where we can both fight for the causes we care about while also taking the time to show our neighbors that we love them. Gina spent her career as a broadcast media manager, specializing in radio production. Her community leadership background includes directing outreach for one of the largest churches in the country, as well as serving as president for the numerous parent-teacher organizations and booster clubs. She lives in Overland Park with her husband Kyle, who's here today too, welcome, and where they have raised 3 amazing children. Judy first heard Gina Repass speak at a political rally last summer. I have heard her as well, so I'm excited to hear her too. She was absolutely blown away by her energy and her passion. Her first thought after her speech was, we have to get her to come speak at the fellowship. We are all so happy that worked out. Thank you so much, Gina, for traveling to Manhattan today to share your wisdom with us. Thank you. So glad you're here.
Yeah. I know enough to adjust the mic. I was raised, and by all means, if you can't hear me, tell me. And if I'm going too long, I was raised in a Lutheran tradition, so don't be afraid to do this. I know to wrap that up. Just so that I don't wander, I did put a few notes down. Well, first of all, thank you to both Judy and Kathy, and I do want to say what a wonderful, welcoming spirit you have in this place. If that was your goal, it is well achieved. So thank you. And I think my introduction was already made. Normally I stand up and talk about myself, but I will say that my husband Kyle is here and we have 3 children, Adam, Ariel, and Christian. Adam is 32. He's a former Kansas State football player here in Manhattan, so we've made this drive quite often. He's now a broadcast journalist who's gotten to, I know, clap for the Cats. And hopefully they do well today in basketball. He's been able to cover the Kansas City Chiefs and really follow his passion. And our daughter Ariel is 26. She's a medical student at KU Med. We are very, very proud of her. She was honored with being able to run their gender affirming care night on Tuesdays for their JDoc, which is their free clinic. And then our young son is a state champion football player, graduated from high school last year, but he is 6'8". I understand you had a 6'10" a presenter last week, so we understand the challenges of that. Well, I just want to open up by saying, first of all, it's such an honor to be with you today. And when I thought about what I wanted to share, I wanted to talk about inclusion and belonging, but I actually had talked to some of my team members and they said, well, it's okay to talk a little bit about racism. So I want to talk about how we speak into that and bring people in with us. So I wanted to start with just kind of the concept of what that is. And I thought about the concept of sin. What does it mean when we've sinned against one another? And I love that we're speaking into our Native American Indigenous brothers and sisters and how we are continuing to sin against them. Both the Hebrew and the Greek talk about sin as being out of line with God, being out of fellowship, missing the mark with the Lord in that regard. And I thought of Matthew 22, 37 and 40, and it talks about the fact that really we are differentiating ourselves out of God's law. And what Jesus says to us in that is there are only two laws. One is to love God with everything inside you, but the other is to love your neighbor as yourself. And when we talk about being out of fellowship with our neighbor, it means that we've taken either our personal prejudice and added power to that, and we've had a dynamic where we are out of fellowship with our neighbor. And there are only two laws. One is to love God and one is to love your neighbor. And you receive God however you receive God. But you put that out in how you love one another. And who is our neighbor? Well, we are all our neighbors. And so I really appreciate coming in today and hearing us pray about what's going on with our Indigenous brothers and sisters, our true neighbors, the land upon which we stand. Well, when we know we're out of fellowship, we know that hurts everyone. It hurts the people who are perpetrating and it hurts the victim. There is no healing for any of us when we are hurting one another. Well, I will tell you, I don't feel hopeless about that. I have some calls to action that I wanted to leave with you. The first one is about being intentional. Seek out those that you're out of fellowship with. And I know that can sound counterintuitive when it's the person down the street who you've seen be hateful to someone. The natural instinct is to shrink from that and to say, I'm going to stay here because I don't want to be hurt by that person anymore. Or quite frankly, I don't want to hear something terrible come out of their mouths and go over there and hurt them myself. I do understand that. But my faith tells me, like in Mark chapter 2, verses 15, that Jesus went out and ate with those who were different than he was. It talks about the time that he went to supper at Levi's house, and in came sinners and tax collectors. And you know where the Lord was? He was sitting right there among them. It's not okay to shrink from those that we are different than, even those for whom we disagree. Now, I'm not going to tell everyone in this room to go out and join a KKK rally and try to convert anyone. Please don't do that. But what I will tell you is that those conversations live closer to home. Those are the people who you know are cranky or mean or racist or hurtful, misogynistic, anti-trans, homophobic. Those are the people that it's our instinct to want to avoid. And I get it. That's not a pleasant conversation, but I'm going to challenge you. If Jesus could go do it, so can we. Go have a meal with that person. Go engage with that person. Because what we're doing is continuing the chasm when we stay away. And we cannot bridge unity if we stay in that chasm. The second thing I'm going to tell you to do is be consistent. Don't stop doing. Galatians 6 and 9 says, do not get weary in the doing of good, for in the proper time you will reap a harvest if you don't give up. Another way to hear that is through Dr. King, where he said the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. I want you to lock into the word long on that. It doesn't happen quickly. You have to stay the course. I will tell you, I have a friend, Dennis, who talks about when he was younger, his parents smoked, and they smoked in the house. And he and his brothers and sisters, there'd be a little smoke ring, because there's a difference in temperature in your home, and there was kind of like this cloud of smoke in the house. And his brothers and sisters and he would like take their little airplanes and pretend to zoom up through the clouds in and out of the smoke and play with it. And then he said, eventually my parents either stopped smoking or they stopped smoking in the house. So you couldn't see the smoke ring anymore. But if you sat down on the couch, you could still smell it. It was still there. That's what racism and hatred and separatism and all the phobias do to us. Even though we're a lot better nowadays about not being right out in front with it, it's still in the fabric. And we can still smell it and feel it. You know what hatred feels like. You know what it looks like. Ask your Native and American and Indigenous brothers and sisters what that feels like. I will tell you, standing here as a Black woman, how I experience that. I experience micro and macro aggressions. And for those of you, though that's terminology, it's a little bit new, but a microaggression would be something like, oh, Gina, I really liked your hair better when you had it in braids. I don't like that it's processed. And I'll tell you where that came from. That happened just a couple of months ago. Last year we went on vacation and I decided to braid my hair because it gets really frizzy. and especially if you're getting wet or you're going somewhere tropical. So I went into a braided kind of hairstyle. And it was new. It was a look that people hadn't seen on me. And some of the women that I'd worked with had seen it, and they were, very complimentary of it. But then I went back to this. This is how I normally wear my hair. But instead of just saying, you look beautiful today, it's like, let me tell you what I liked better. It's a microaggression. A macroaggression would be something to the effect of, you don't belong here. And then unfortunately, the racism that we still separates us from one another. My 11-year-old niece is living in Los Angeles, the Los Angeles area with my brother and his wife, their family unit. She is fighting a battle right now where at her middle school, kids are calling her the N-word. And they're saying it. And I will say to you, just calling someone the N-word, that's not just racism, that's an assault. I'd like to challenge you that the things that separate us are what's in the fabric. And it's a lot harder to fight, but I want to encourage you, be consistent. Do not get weary in the doing of good. Do not get weary in uniting around people who are different than you. In the proper time, you will reap a harvest if you do not give up. I'll give you one more story relative to that. My mother was a civil rights activist, and she was very clear with my brothers and I about what our responsibility was to not only one another, but to others, to give back, to be incorporated into the good works of this country and our neighbors and our community. And she would say to us all the time, I'm concerned, you're getting too comfortable. You're getting too comfortable, you are getting too comfortable. And let me be clear, she didn't say it conversationally the way I just shared it with you. There was some heat on that. There was passion to how she was saying it to me. And one day I said to my mother, I said, well, Mom, isn't that what you marched for? Isn't that what you fought for? Wasn't that what the movement was about, so that your children and then your grandchildren could be comfortable? And she looked me dead in my eye and said, absolutely not. We marched and we fought and we went into the streets so that you could have equal access, so that you could have equal rights. Don't you dare get comfortable. There was a complacency that she saw that scared her, that she wanted us not to fall into, because you cannot have progress with complacency. I give people a visual when I'm talking about it. Any physicists in the room, or just common sense, if you coast, physically, you cannot coast up. Complacency, comfortability is coasting. I challenge you to get uncomfortable. Inclusion will not happen if we're coasting. Coasting means that I very much like Judy and I very much like Kathy, and I want to hang out with them because that's comfortable. They make me feel loved and safe. Get uncomfortable. Find the places where you have to put energy into it to move from where you are to where you need to go. That is how we close the chasm. That is what inclusion looks like. Eat with sinners. Eat with those who are different with you. Reach out to those whom you are uncomfortable with. That is how we get to inclusion. Well, then the third thing, I'm a Lutheran, so we speak in thirds, get it timed down. It's going to be pretty easy. Love your enemy. I said easy, I should have said simple, because simple and easy are not the same things. Simple is, how do you get from here to here? The hard part is, do I have to walk or climb up a hill? Is it raining? Do I have on the right shoes? But simply love your enemies. I'm going to give you another scripture. It's from Matthew 5:43 to 48. But it's basically when Jesus was speaking, and what he says is this: what does it benefit you to love only those who love you? Even sinners do that. What does it benefit you to hate those who hate you? Even sinners do that. The Lord makes the sun to shine on the evil and the good. God loves us all. We are in this together. And there is zero benefit to you to sit comfortably only among those who make you comfortable. I understand why you would do that. I certainly tend to do that myself. Trust me, I don't have this all worked out. But that will never get us to a place of inclusion and a sense of belonging. Our LGBTQ brothers and sisters understand what it's like when they are not included. I challenge you to say that there is a neighbor somewhere in your life who doesn't feel included, who doesn't know that their humanness is enough for them to be loved by you, that doesn't understand that just because we view the world differently doesn't mean I don't see the value in you. And quite frankly, the real hard part is when it's the person who has hurt you. When the person who is hurling the insults, the micros, the macros, the inward, when that is standing against you, to still be able to reach out and say, I love you. Or more importantly, I forgive you. And if those are too hard, look at them and say these words. I see you. I see you. You speak value into people when you see them. And then they don't have to be hidden. Now, again, I know that that's hard. I've experienced that my whole life. But I want to tell you what makes me very, very hopeful. Judy and Kathy make me hopeful. Standing in a group of people who understand the value in everyone. I love your mission. I sat here and read through it. All are welcome. All different viewpoints. You're welcome here. We are unified in our humanness. That makes me hopeful. Well, I'm going to kind of wrap up. I wasn't sure how long I had to talk, but had I known, I would have prepared longer. But I'll end with this story about what makes me feel hopeful. My mother was a Lutheran pastor, Jonna C. Orduna. She was actually a civil rights activist who started sneaking out of her house at the age of 14. She was part of a documentary called A Time for Burning, and it was about the integration of churches in the 60s. It was actually Oscar nominated, something she was very, very proud of. But in her later life, she turned to the church and she became a pastor. She pastored a church, Pahako Lutheran Church. It is on the country road outside of Fremont, Nebraska. It is a white chapel church. I'm going to take you there with me for a moment. Pahako is a white chapel church on a country road with a bell tower out front. It's got a little cemetery next door. It's got red carpet as you go in. My mom looked a lot like me, or I would say I looked like her. I think she was much more beautiful. She had a big round face, really shining with the grace of God, but also with the wear of the civil rights movement on her. And my mother, as a Black woman, pastored an all-white congregation. Her Sundays looked a lot like what this looks like right here. It was a completely rural church, almost exclusively farmers. Add that juxtaposition in your brain. And they loved each other deeply, deeply. My mom died a year ago, the week before Christmas, on December 17th. And that Friday was the Friday before the Sunday Christmas children's pageant. I loved the time of all ages here. That was beautiful. We still do that in our Lutheran tradition as well. Mom had been working on the children's pageant from the hospital, and it was very sudden, and we were shocked and heartbroken, devastated, as was her congregation. They went forward with the children's program on that Sunday. It was a church where, if any of you have been from this tradition, on the Christmas pageant Sunday, they gave out a brown paper sack with an apple and an orange and some nuts in it, and maybe some hard candies. I see, yes, acknowledgement. It was just one of those old traditions that they continue to keep. That church was heartbroken, as were my brothers and I. And so we knew that our responsibility was to go and to stand with Pahako and to greet every single person after the children's pageant. There were a lot of tears during that children's pageant. And so we did. And at the end of the service, every member came up and hugged us, and they all had a story, and we wanted to hear them. That's how we comforted one another. And one of the women that came up to us towards the end of the line had a little girl clinging to her leg. And she looked at us with tears in her eyes and she said, I just need you to know that my daughter thought that your mom was Jesus. I will carry that with me for the rest of my life, because there are two things about that. One, I think it was so endemic, reflective of what that kind of unity and love looks like. Where at Pahako, they loved each other from the inside out. They belonged to one another. They included each other in their walk together. And two, I know that that is the challenge my mother left behind for me. That we could, should, and will love each other for who we are in the inside. That I will see you and you will see me and we can love each other. That is the heart of inclusion. That's how we belong to one another. Do not get weary in the doing of that good. In the proper time, the arc of that moral universe will bend towards justice. And in honor of my mother, I stand here to tell you that is what I will do. So these three simple things: be intentional, seek out those who are different from you, be consistent, do not get weary in the doing of good, and love your enemy. It does not profit you to hate those who hate you. And for that, I say thank you. Thank you for loving me and allowing me to spend time with you today. Thank you so very much. Is that right now, or?
Yeah,
Oh.
does anybody have questions for Gina? Would that be okay? Or if not, that's fine too. So just a little bit of time to think. If you do have any questions, just a little time to think or comments. Okay, Larry.
Oh, Larry Weaver here. Is it, I don't usually feel that I've got enemies that I need to love, but there are a lot of people that I'm around who are different from me. Where does including not enemies but different, where does that fit into your constellation of things to do? Because that's what I'm aware of myself trying to do, and sometimes succeeding. I just like your thoughts on including could be friends as well as enemies.
Well, I will tell you, you have a great head start on that. The fact that you don't view others as your enemies, just different, I appreciate that. I would tell you the same concept. When something looks different or feels different or is different than you, I would lean into those differences. Absolutely. Find out, okay, well, here I like chocolate and they like jelly beans. Let me go figure out what it is about that jelly bean that attracts them. But I will say this, Larry, that is very inspirational to me, that you don't view anyone in the world as your enemy. I think that is lovely. So I think you're a way head start on that. Did that answer for you? Thank you.
I just wanted to say that it was such a lovely presentation, and thank you so much for coming here. And I especially love the imagery of talking about, the coasting and momentum, and that was really useful. So thank you.
Well, thank you very, very much. Oh, I'm Judy.
So I'm Judy Nicholson, and you know that. I would just be interested in if you could tell us a little bit more about your children's journeys, especially your daughter, who I connected with at the, where I connected with her. Anyway, yeah, if you have any stories about their journeys.
Oh, well, that's so kind. As a mom, I would hate to talk about my children. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, my children are, they're not only, Barack Obama said, our children are not only better than we are, they're better than we were. And I can tell you, I lived that out with them. My son, Adam, was a natural athlete, which led him to Kansas State. But I'll be honest, I'm going to confess, we were Huskers. And I'm talking about in the days where Bill Snyder and Tom did not get along. So when Adam was recruited to come here, he watched video on the big screen over there at the football complex, and it was all highlights of the Wildcats doing terrible things to the Huskers. We were all just, oh, we were clutching the pearls. It was horrible. But his journey was what I would tell you a little more plain than my daughter's. My daughter was a premature baby. She was born with hearing only in one ear. She couldn't even form, she didn't have the bones that would form sound. So we've always been very careful. I even started to do a little sign just in case we lost hearing in the other ear. Ariel was a shy young woman, but she was born with this wonderful sense of justice. She was the child on the playground that if someone was bullying someone else, she would jump right in to intervene. She did really well in high school, never got a B. I will tell you that's not necessarily a good thing. A little bit of failure helps prepare you for the real world. So when she took all those A's straight to Mizzou, we all survived that too. She did very, very well that first semester, but when she joined her sorority, she got a B, and it just about devastated her. And then when she applied to medical school, she did not get in on the first time. She did not get in on the second try. And I finally had to say to her, I said, you know what, Errol, do you know what they call a doctor who took 3 times to get into medical school? They call you a doctor. So again, don't get weary in the doing of good. But what she did do is she came home, she went to University UMKC in Kansas City, got her master's degree, and then during COVID, she decided to go and be a permanent substitute teacher at an elementary school, because in northern Overland Park, those kids did not have access to laptops, and they weren't able, we were all just catching on to Zoom. And so those were still students that needed to be taught, and so she became a permanent sub during COVID at an elementary school. Okay, sidebar. She came home one day on a windy day and talked about the kindergartners and how they were kind of getting blown away in the car line because the wind was picking them up and picking up their, I loved that story. And they also called her Dr. Recess because our last name is Repass, and they had trouble with that. So, but then she went and she kept applying. And what she did was she figured out that the first no was of no consequence. The second no was of no consequence because she kept going and kept going. And that's why she's 26, but she's an M1. It's her first year. But she's got 2 master's degrees, spent a year teaching young children. And now when she got into medical school and they do their free clinic, she got to apply for whichever night she wanted to run. They usually put that on the first and second year students. She chose the night for gender affirming care. Now, this is only for adults. They do not provide it to minors. I don't get into the politics of that at all. But what she came home one night and told me was that, Mom, the majority of the people we see are older than 50 years old. People who've spent their whole life not feeling like they were who they were on the inside, and now we get to give them that care. And I'm very, very proud of the woman that Ariel is. And then Christian's a freshman in college. We need prayers for Christian, prayers for his dad and I. Let me just say that second semester, he's doing just fine right now. First semester was, woo, football games and no curfews. So we had to figure that out. But Judy, thank you for asking. I'm very hopeful about what those children, my adult children, are bringing into the world. Again, they are not only better than we are, they were better than we were. Yes, ma'am. Oh, is there one on the screen? Oh, hello, good morning.
Hi, Gina. Thank you for your wonderful talk. I have a question that might be difficult. I don't know. I don't consider them enemies, but people who have some malice towards me that may have once been friends or husbands. So there's situations where you know that if you engage with someone, but it could be someone in the community too, you know, that if you engage with them, it has in the past over and over again been detrimental no matter what efforts you put into being friendly and sociable. So in a case like that, I would say loving them might mean not engaging with them. What would you say to that?
I would say that wisdom is a higher form of valor. Sometimes it is okay to love from a distance. The key to that is to love. Even look for the good in them if they can't see the good in you, but it is absolutely okay to be self-protective. And that was something my mother and I wrestled with, because, you know, during the 60s, when they were marching, people were throwing rocks. People were hitting them in the head. There was violence to that. How do you love someone who hurts you in that way? So there is, and it is okay to love from a distance. I think the most important thing is to not lock that in your heart. Allow that to be their journey. The people who are hurtful to you, the people who may harbor ill against you, allow that to be their journey as long as you are open. But it's okay to be open with a protective difference, especially if it is something destructive to you. Just don't close your heart. You can close ranks without closing your heart. Does that make sense? Yes, ma'am.
Is this on? What are your political ambitions? Aren't there, are you running for Democrat chairman or something? Am I clear off base?
You are well on base. I was proud to be the first ever African-American woman nominated by either major political party in the 161-year history of Kansas for a statewide office to be the Secretary of State. So I just ran as the Secretary of State in the 2022 cycle. I'm very, very proud of that. I did not win. I was able to run on the idea that every vote matters, your voice. Your vote is your voice. But then the Democratic Party saw fit to elect me to be, I am now the first ever African-American woman to be the chair of the Kansas Democratic Party. And I've been that for now 3 weeks and 1 day, so thank you. Thank you. Your memory was correct.
Hi, my name is Chris Bailey.
Hello, Chris.
And you were talking about your children, and it gave me the courage to ask the first question that occurred to me was, my stepfather is Larry Weaver, and he grew up as a minister's child, and I just wondered if there's anything that you think, any reflection or memory that you have that might be both illustrative and instructive to this audience.
Well, certainly. It's always interesting when Senate candidate Mark Holland grew up where his mom was a teacher at a school and his dad was the preacher, and he talked about the fact that he learned to just tell the truth early because it was going to catch you one way or the other. I will tell you it's kind of the same. It can be a bit of a burden when people look to your parent as their spiritual guide. There tends to be a sense that you're going to be more perfect or that they have it all figured out. Pastors are just as human as the rest of us. And being a preacher's kid is kind of a hard thing to do. I definitely understand the weight of that, and we come from both sides of my family. My grandfathers were pastors. But what I can say to you is that what it does do is it allows you to see behind that veil. Every leader is a human being, flawed and imperfect. My amazing husband leaves his socks on the floor. You know, the pastors of your church are just as human as the rest of us. And I will tell you, it informed you as a child to be able to see both and. And I think that that is a great gift. I hope that was your experience as well. I know it can also be a lot of pressure. But I see Larry asked a good and first question, so I seem like the balance was there. Well, thank you so much. I know I've kind of taken a lot of time, but thank you for welcoming me. Thank you for the spirit. Thank you for the unity, and thank you for your humanity. I'm so glad I got to be with you today. Thank you all again very much.
That was really wonderful, very much. Thank you. we do have a final hymn. We are not our own. Like to invite everybody for potluck, and I think it's going to be delicious. And the closing words are, well, just before I give the closing words, we also have an announcement from Judy about Happy Nowruz, 1402. How do I say it? Nowruz. Did I say right? Okay. Join our growing Hazara community of MHK on March 19th this afternoon from 5 to 9. Celebrate with Afghan food, music, and dancing at the 5th Community Center on 2002 Turnstile Circle. So it's the Hazara at the 5th Community Center. Can you hear me? 5th Community Center this afternoon, starting at 5 till 9. And the final words are, put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. The kettle is singing, even as it pours you a drink. Everything is waiting for you. Thank you.